Want to learn how to make lovely coffee dyed papers like these? Well, grab yourself a cup of coffee, no pun intended, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's super fast and easy. To coffee dye some papers, you're going to need a few supplies. I'm sure most of them you have at home. Okay, let's start with the obvious. We need paper. I use inexpensive copy paper because I like my papers thin in my journals, and I find the coffee thickens them up somehow, and then when I add all the embellishments or anything else, they get quite thick. I will use 160 or 200 gram paper if I know I'm going to be making tags or cards or anything so that I want a little thicker. And I use instant coffee. The brand doesn't matter. Your paper doesn't care. I buy what's ever on sale. I change brands frequently. When I do make my coffee mixture, I take a measuring cup, a 1 cup measuring cup, and I put in approximately 3 to 4 tablespoons of the instant coffee. Then I add halfway with hot water to dissolve the grinds. And once it's dissolved, then I top it off with cold water. And then I pour it into my sprayers. That's it. I have a little espresso cup, or any small cup works. It's great for making those circles. Rubber gloves if you don't like the smell of the coffee. I also have 2 rags, a wet one and a dry one. And I'll come to that in a minute. Oops. Let me see why we need the rags. And then for the lacy ones, you need those plastic tablecloths or placemats. And I will explain a little more about that in a minute. But first I want to talk about the sprayers. I find this is one of the most important features in getting nice results, is finding a good sprayer. And I'll show you what I mean. This is the basic sprayer. I have tons of these. They make these flecks when I spray. Big globs. I can control it a little bit with my dry cloth to mop it up, but it's not the look I'm looking for. I prefer, I think they call them a fine mist sprayer. They might be in the cooking departments. I believe I got this one on Amazon. And this gives a finer, smoother spray effect. Okay. First I'm going to show you how to make what I call my basic coffee dyed papers. I make a ton of these. When I first started making junk journals, I coffee dyed my paper like I think most people. I took a metal cookie tray, filled it with coffee, put all my papers in, and then took them out and dried them in the oven till they were brown or super crispy or black. After a while, I discovered I wasn't keen on that dark, crispy paper. So I experimented, and then I came up with this technique that works for me. I don't know if anyone else does it, but this is how I make these lovely coffee dyed papers. This is so super quick and easy, you're not even going to believe it. The best part of this technique, I find, is you can do this on your kitchen table or even on the floor, anywhere where you have a bit of space. Just lay down a plastic tablecloth, then I lay all my papers out next to each other, fill the whole area with papers, and then I start spraying and making my rings if I want coffee rings. It goes really quick and easy, and since the papers are not soaked right through and dunk in coffee, they dry rather fast. As you see, some I sprayed on the back for more color, so I know I'll use them for two-sided. Some I left plain, or I just left them alone, and I can put them through the printer to print digitals on the back side. So it depends if I want to use them in my journal as a page and I want it two-sided, then I will spray both sides. And to be honest with you, half the time the papers are still wet on the tablecloth when I flip them over and spray the other side. And let's get started. I'm going to show you how to make these lovely coffee dyed papers. Okay, paper, of course. My sprayer, and I spray. That's it. Okay, that basically is it. And you'll get a smooth brown coffee dyed paper once it dries. They do dry a lovelier shade than what you see. But since that was too easy, when I want to add some coffee rings, I take a cup, in this case my little espresso card, I spray some coffee on the table, and then I just munch my cup in there, and voila, I have some coffee rings. If I want splatters, I use a fan brush, and then I will just dunk it in that coffee and splatter where I want it. And now you have this. And that's it. I said it was super easy. Now I put this to the side and let it dry. Now let's move on to the fancy ones with the placemat. Let's start with placemats because they're probably the easiest for you to find. These are those cheap plastic placemats you find in the dollar stores, or here in Germany in Action. I get a lot of these. You see, these ones I call the holy ones because, as you can see, the design, it goes right through the other side, so they're holy. The holes go right through. There's another kind that's not. I'll show those to you in a second. But you see, I grab whenever I see them. They don't have to be rectangle. You can even use ones like this. I will show you the results I get from this style, these styles of placemats. But first, let's start with this one because it's the easiest, the holy kind. You need to just take your piece of paper, lay your placemat on top, and have a second paper ready. With the holy placemats, you will get two prints, a positive and a negative, which is really cool. Now I have my paper under the placemat and I just spray right through it. A nice misting. If I add more, of course it's going to get darker, but I don't want it super dark. So now I take my next piece of paper and I lay it right on top where I have the one underneath. And then I just rub. You don't have to rub so hard that you get a hand cramp, but you will see as you're rubbing, the coffee comes through. If you have a spot like here where it wasn't dark enough, I will lift it up gently and spray again. Do not lift the whole paper because you will never get it to match up again. So there you go. That's basically it. But before I lift it, if you want the back side of your paper to have some coffee dyed, at this point I will just give it a light spray and it's done. Now I can lift it up and there's the top print. Let me move this. And there's the bottom print. These dry much nicer than they look when they're wet. Let me show you here. These are some dried versions of the top and the bottom print. Look how much lovelier that is. You get two for the price of one. Okay, that was super easy, wasn't it? Now, let me show you how to deal with ones that I call one-sided. You see this, this is a placemat. It's solid on the back. It's plastic all the way through. But the top is like embossed, 3D. And these make wonderful prints too. But you have to deal with them differently. Obviously, I can't get positive and negative because the coffee won't go through. But I can still use them. So I spray this lightly. And I take my paper and I lay it down. And once again, I rub. that's it. The whole magic is right here. And you can see I sprayed a lot here and it's lighter here. But when it dries, let me show you, you still get a beautiful print. I just love these. So that's the what we'll call the one-sided ones. You only get one print, but they still work if you find those kind of placemats. And then the other placemat I found was this kind. It's like a really embossed, like a 3D version. You probably could do this with your embossing folders. Now, I lay this one up, the placemat on the table, and I spray it also. Make sure it gets in. This one I might give a little more coffee so it goes in, down into the embossed areas. I lay my paper on top and I rub. This one I tend to rub where the embossing is, a little harder with my finger to get in all the grooves. Okay, you can see how it instantly, and voila. Next paper is that. And when this one, when it's dry, just to show you the comparison, this is the wet and this is the dry. Don't these make gorgeous? Just imagine these pages in a journal. For those that don't like the crinkling sound, sorry. But even the wrong side or the back side of the paper, a lot of times gets coffee, which makes it, you can add lines, embellish it, or add more by coffee spraying it. So that's how I make the lace papers. I told you it was super fast and easy. Let me show you some of the papers that different placemats make. This one, it's the holy one, and from this one, I get 2 prints. Top and bottom. Aren't those lovely? And placemats don't have to be rectangle. I have these funky round ones, and this one made these lovely prints, top and bottom. And then I have this one. It's like a string, I think, and it created this from top and bottom. Now, this placemat, it's like semi-holy and has a lot of solid areas that will not create a print. But no fear, it still does make a print. This one is a top and bottom. Oops. This is the top and this is the bottom. I did place it in the middle, sprayed it, and placed this on top. And you can see it still created an interesting design. So don't disregard them when they're halfway. Just like this tablecloth. It's not what I would call optimal, but when I started, I was just looking for anything, and some of these are quite old, and I don't use them quite often, but I wanted to show you that that there's still, you can still create lovely pages. This one has like solid sections and has more lace in the middle. And with this one, I did manage to create, this is the top and this is the bottom. Where it's solid, it didn't allow it to come through, but here from the top, it did imprint. Okay, let's come to some of my favorite. Those old plastic tablecloths, you know, the kind Grandma had on her table. A lot of times you can buy these by the meter or yard and just get a small piece. It's enough. I've cut these down to A4 size so they're more easy for me to handle. As you can tell, this was the first one I found, and it has been used to death. But this one created these lovely designs, top and bottom. And this placemat, this tablecloth created these designs. Obviously, I got a little coffee happy there and made it a little darker. And this tablecloth is my newest addition to the plastic tablecloth family here. And I find this one's lovely. This is interesting because the background, if you can see, is got like a mesh. And you think, oh, I don't know if it's going to work, but it makes a beautiful design, as I'm going to show you. This is the top. Even the mesh imprints in spots. And the bottom, well, it makes a lot of coffee, makes the coffee dark on the bottom. But I find they're both really cool. It's one of my favorites for now. And then I have this weird one. I think this is an anti-slip tablecloth because it's really thick and gooey, gummy or rubbery, whatever you call it. But it makes an interesting print. We have the top and bottom. You don't have to look at just tablecloth. There's other things you can use to get imprints. Now these, don't laugh, I believe these are sink drainers or something. And I found these again at one of those dollar stores. This is when I started off. And this reminds me of the 70s, Flower Power. And it created these coffee dye papers. And then we have this funky mat. And it creates these papers, top and bottom. Here. This one, oops, this one makes cool circles, but the underside, the backside of it is not optimal because it has these like nibs. See, do you see that? I guess, but I can still use it. Instead, I flipped it over and I put the paper under and I sprayed it. And then for my top imprint, because of those nibs, it's, as you can see, but this is what I got. This side I find is cool. This, okay, so this will become a one-sider. And this is my least favorite. It once again was from the beginning days, like the stone effect. And it created, oops, top and bottom. So you just have to use your imagination and look at items around the house differently. I am not sure what this is. I have no idea. If you know, leave a comment, tell me. But of course, I had to give it a try. And it creates these kind of papers, lines. Isn't that cool? That's the top and that's the bottom. And last but not least, this is one of those Teflon things for the grill. I stole it from my hubby. Yes, I bought him a new one. And this created these cool imprints. So look around the house, see what things you can use. Oh, and just so you know, you can use stencils to make the same effect. I'm not going to drag those out because we'd be here all day and I want to make this a quick video. So as you see, you can use all kinds of items to make coffee dyed paper. It just doesn't have to always be plain. But plain is also pretty because we need those plain pages for our journals. I hope this inspired you a bit. And if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, comment, like, you know, all the stuff YouTube tells us to do. But don't go away. I'm going to show you some more with some colored pages. I forgot to mention, when you're making coffee dyed paper, when you're using those placemats to make coffee dyed paper, don't forget envelopes. Look how cool these are. Use the same technique in making envelopes. And these are, we call them Butterbrot tutors. They're bread bags, sandwich bags, I guess you'd call it in US. And these ones were really coffee dyed with some coffee sprinkled on top to give a deeper effect. So it's not just for paper. Dig out the envelopes. You need those in your junk journal too. If you're thinking, Liz, I don't like coffee dyed papers. They're too brown for me. I like colors. Well, look at this. This is Easter egg dye. I took Easter egg dyes, when, of course, after Easter when they were on sale, I bought a whole bunch, and I mixed up the dye and put them in a spray bottle and did the exact same technique. I probably used a little less water so it would be more intense. And here in the back, it looks like I laid some of the leaves from in the garden. But if at some point, I found them a little bright because Easter eggs aren't exactly dull. I sprayed on top with coffee and to damp it down. And that gave it also a cool effect. And then what about this pink one? This, I just sprayed Easter egg dye and coffee together. Isn't that cool? And this one also through the placemat. Oh no, this was the tablecloth. Through the piece of tablecloth, coffee, and the Easter egg dye. And my favorites, of course, are the anything with green. Love these. And these were first with the green, and then I just splattered coffee right on top. Sprayed coffee and splattered it to give it a different effect. Same with that grill one. So you see, you can do all kinds of things. It doesn't have to just be coffee or tea. I have used liquid, what are they called? Liquid watercolors. Mix them up. I have also used acrylic paints and added water and made it thin so I could put in a spray bottle if it was the right color, which I actually, to be honest with you, think that's the case here to get the moss green. I used some acrylic paints. So I hope you enjoyed this and it inspired you. And like I said, if you did, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment. Let me know if you'd make your coffee paper this way or if you have another technique or ideas. Until the next time, choose.